On ABC Northern Tasmania, Joni Mitchell, Big Yellow Taxi. At 13 minutes past 7, the Day Paradise put up a parking lot. I don't know about parking lots. I think there are other plans in mind for Derby. The Derby Draft Heritage Study is going to be released for public feedback from about 12:30 today. And we've got the author of the study with us this morning. And we say a very good morning to John Wadsley. Morning, John.
Good morning.
So tell me about what you've been asked to do with this heritage study.
Okay, well, primarily the council commissioned me to undertake a review of the history of the town, and from that history look at what are the important structures and important places within and around the township in order to, I suppose, try and appreciate better the history of Derby and why it's so important in Tasmania. As well as looking at some of the places, I was also asked to recommend a proposed heritage precinct for the town and prepare a number of planning guidelines for future development within the townscape.
So, John, for you, what are the standout features of Derby?
Oh, look, Derby is an amazing place, really. I mean, although I've been up there in the past, I haven't been to Derby for some time before I did this study. And when you actually go into the town, it's sort of held within that narrow valley. And immediately the landscape grabs you because you've got those high hills on either side. And then I suppose for me, the really important thing about Derby was that it is such a complete small town, virtually unchanged over the last 80 years.
So now, John, I believe there's been some talk around the region about the potential of turning the entire township into a heritage precinct or a heritage town. Yeah. Is that going to be your recommendation, or are you looking at a more specific captured area?
No, I've certainly recommended that the whole town be recognised within a heritage precinct. And primarily, and while that may concern some people, I don't think it should, because heritage planning these days and the management of heritage is all about actually helping people to live within houses and within precincts. And I suppose from my point of view, when I looked at Derby, it has a history and a landscape that very much defines the history of tin mining, particularly in the northeast, but also across Tasmania. And whereas other towns like Queenstown and Zeehan, which had a long history of mining, have grown and changed, Derby has remained almost unchanged, as I said, over a long period of time. And that's very, very important in heritage terms.
This would no doubt be a good fit for initiatives such as the Schoolhouse Museum and the Trail of the Tin Dragon, would it not?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Derby has such an amazing history in terms of not only the human endeavour in extracting the tin, the alluvial tin, and just looking at some of the early photographs, it was quite awe-inspiring to think that people could actually undertake those works back then. I mean, I don't think they'd be allowed to do it today, given OHS, but also you have that awful human tragedy of the Cascade Dam disaster in 1929.
Yes.
When the dam broke, and quite a number of people were killed as well as a number of animals, and the parts of the town were lost, and the mine workings were flooded. And I mean, that in itself is a very interesting but also a very poignant element of their history. But as well as that, you have some amazing engineering achievements with the Bryce's water race that brought water 48 kilometres from the Ringarooma River to Derby. And in technological terms, those sort of things are quite important.
It's 17 minutes past 7, ABC Northern Tasmania. You're with Belinda King this morning, and we're chatting with John Wadsley, author of the Derby Heritage Study. John, how do you see this study potentially influencing the planning scheme?
Well, it's quite common across Tasmania, across Australia really, for planning schemes to define heritage precincts, which basically give councils a way of understanding and managing heritage values within a certain area. So certainly the definition of a precinct is an important element, which should become part of the plan scheme, I believe, and I'll be talking to the council tomorrow about that. But also I've prepared a set of planning guidelines, which not only could be used for the Derby precinct, but could also be used in other parts of the municipality if council want to see other heritage precincts defined there. What I've proposed is not unusual, and it's certainly not rocket science in comparison to other areas. The guidelines I've suggested are very common through Hobart and through other smaller rural towns across Tasmania where there are heritage areas.
How important do you think the heritage label is to getting people to actually stopping in the town?
Look, I think there is a lot more interest these days in, I suppose, what you'd call almost heritage tourism, where people and specific tourism based on things even like mining heritage. There are a lot of people who actually go on holidays to have a look around at old mine sites and engineering sites. So I think identifying Derby as a heritage town would certainly help with tourism. I think it would certainly help in terms of obtaining funding for future museum developments or interpretation. The Tin Centre is a wonderful facility that, for a small town like Derby to have that is a great achievement, and it should be used. It should be utilised in a way where, the town can tell its story.
What would you say the top 3 sites are at the moment in Derby?
Oh, goodness. I think the Town Hall's a wonderful building. It's not listed at the moment on any register, and it's a beautiful structure. It shows when it was built in 1923 that the town was very confident. It was growing. There's also the old, what they call the National Bank building, which was built in 1888. It's a very rare timber building for a bank in Tasmania. There are only a very few number of timbers.
A timber bank?
A timber bank, yeah. Now, it actually claimed to be the only timber bank in Tasmania, but it's not.
What a challenge.
Yes, and that's a lovely little structure, which again, when it was built in the 1880s, just showed how prosperous the town was becoming through tin mining. And probably the schoolhouse itself, where the museum is located. That's a lovely building.
I always thought you meant to put your money into bricks and mortar, not into timber. But anyway, there you go.
Well, can I say on that regard, that's probably one of the most defining elements of Derby is the fact that nearly every building in the town is actually timber.
Wow.
That means the churches, the civic buildings, even the courthouse, and the post office, the town hall, they're all timber, and most of them have survived from the late 19th century, early 20th century to today, which is actually quite a rare thing in Tasmania.
John, for the public to have their say and meet you and have a chat, I believe there is an opportunity this afternoon?
Yes, between 12:30 and 6 at the Derby Town Hall. I'll be there along with some council officers to talk to people about the report and any issues or questions they may have. The report is also on the Dorset Council website.
So a nice big chunk of time for people to go along and chew your ear.
Absolutely, I'll be there.
Fantastic. John Wadsley, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Great, no worries.
On ABC Northern Tasmania, John Wadsley, author of The Derby Heritage.